Hi everybody, this video is about diminished seventh chords and how we can improvise over them or construct a phrase over them when they are a passing chord. In most cases that's what they are. Many people find diminished chords problematic because they think that you have to play the diminished scale over a diminished seventh chord. For instance, if you look at this particular progression, E minor 7, let's say, E flat diminished 7, D minor 7. So people will think for instance, they might play a phrase like this, or they might say, for instance. So what they do is they interject a pattern, or they insert a pattern from the diminished seventh scale onto that chord. There's another way. If we compare the notes in the different scales in those three chords, we will find that only two notes change. Now we're in the key of C major, so for instance we know that E minor 7 is the third degree, D minor 7 is the second degree. The E flat diminished seventh chord is what we call the flatted third or the lower third degree, and in that chord we have four notes: E flat, G flat, A and C. A and C are notes which are common both to the E minor 7 chord, or I should say the C major scale, and which is a scale for both the E minor 7 and the D minor 7. So basically the only thing that's really changing between E minor 7 and D minor 7 are two notes. And those notes are, of course, are chromatic. They go. So if we're trying to phrase over that particular cadence or that movement, which includes a chord of tension, which is the E flat diminished 7, we want to try to play a phrase which can span, as it were, over those three chords and land on the resolution, or the chord of resolution, which is D minor 7. So for instance, I could do once again. Okay, now those notes. So I've got, those are all notes of the C scale, basically. Now here comes the E flat diminished 7. So I've got the B in there. Sorry. So this little bit of that line is centered around the note A. I approach it with B, C major scale, and then I go to G sharp, chromatic note, and then now the focus has to be, we're still in the C major scale, but the focus has to be on the minor chord of D. So, I have to find a note where I'm going to land on, which will bring out, let's say, the harmony, the D minor 7. So I'm going to do it once again. Now, I started on G. Now we can start on another note. started on the D. And here are my two notes in the diminished chord. G flat, E flat. And I finish up by ending the little phrase with notes which are in the D-7 chord to make it obvious. Now, a general principle to keep in mind is, this is, for instance, a very common progression, as I will hope to explain a bit more later. But I'm taking this directly from I'm in the Mood for Love, an old standard. Well, let's see. We go to the 6th degree, then the 2. Now, if you look, that's a phrase of the melody. So our improvisation should follow that meter, that place in the song form, and that's what we did here. That corresponds to. And the other one was. More or less like that. So I started once with the G, started once with the D. Those are two chord notes of E-7. I say a line. There's a kind of form of melody. Huh? But there are other elements involved in improvisation. One is what they call the motif. For instance, you take a little phrase. Sorry. Okay. And then you like that phrase. You like that little motif. So you say, oh, I like to repeat that. So now, but I'm moving to here. So how can I do that? I take into consideration the notes which are changing. Here is E, G, right? E, G, A, B, D, C. Huh? Now we know that E and G are going to move to E flat and G flat. So if I like that motif, I can keep it, I can repeat it. But I like it. Sounds good. Why not? And then, or whatever, you know. And that's what we call, you know, this is, excuse me, this is called the motif. It's one of the melodic elements that exist in music, in the kind of music, in all music, I would suppose, but I'm talking about naturally what we're used to doing. Motif, a little phrase, you could almost call it, say, it's kind of a lick, perhaps you could say. If it sounds good, then you can vary it by just changing the notes you need to when the chord changes. So you bring another contour to your improvisation. You bring another element in. You see, it's not just eighth note lines, you know. Now, there's also the rhythmic element. For instance, I started always on the first beat, huh? Whatever, you know. However, one, however, check this, 3, 4, for instance. So 1, triplet, right? Now this is almost like an arpeggiated type of line, right? But you know, we can take even more simple motifs. For instance, So it's just da 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 da. That's all it is. It's a rhythmical phrase, which I'm, in the creativity, your inspiration will take you there sometimes. So these things are part of what we call the language. The language who play in this particular style, we all heard this coming up. We inherited this from those who were before us, and it's part of, you could say, it's a kind of a general collective knowledge which the musicians used to all know about, and even the public knew about them. They would, some of these lines, if you would play it, people would stand up and say, "That's right," because they were used to the cultural aspect of it. They identified with that. They made them feel good, so they told you that. Yeah. So this case we've been looking at now is called 3 minor 7, flat 3 diminished 7, 2 minor 7. I don't want to harp on theory too much. I know for many people it's a little bit, it's off-putting. However, we do need to have a little bit of knowledge about what we're dealing with in terms of harmony and tonality. Why? Because when you look at other tunes, as I will show you later, you will start to recognize these particular chord movements when you see them. You'll say, I've seen that one before. I saw it in I'm in the Mood for Love, for instance. And it will give you access. What you've been working on, let's say what we just did now in I'm in the Mood for Love, can be expressed in another tune. Because you say, that's the same chord movement as we had in I'm in the Mood for Love. And you start to see harmony as a series of chord movements, most of which are cadences, which really basically means going from a chord of tension to a chord of resolution. 5-7-1 or 2-5-1 or 4-5-1. That's a cadence. That's what we call the dominant cadence. Then there's a subdominant cadence, which is 4 or 4 minor 1. And then you get these chromatic movements with the diminished chord, but the idea is the same, is that you're going to a point of resolution, and one has to realize that. So in the improvisation, always look at how the theme itself, how the melody itself is composed, together with the harmony. That's the guide where you'll never go wrong. Then try to add some of the vocabulary of things that you've heard. Remember, everybody, imitation is an important part of this. Clark Terry used to say, imitate, assimilate, create. Nobody just pulls something from thin air and all of a sudden he plays, This music has to do with how a tune was conceived, the inspiration behind it, and then the melody and harmony which expressed that. So therefore, if we want to improvise over that, we need to kind of capture that somehow. And what we know from the people of the past is that they did that. Of course, one of the great solos, probably the greatest solo ever taken on I'm in the Mood for Love, is James Moody, Moody's Mood for Love. Everybody should listen to that. I mean, I never heard a solo better than that. And it's one of the great, milestones of jazz. Anyway, getting back, that's 3 minor 7, flat 3 diminished 7, 2 minor 7. Now at the end of this video, I'm going to give you a list of, I will give you the link to my website, where you will find the list of tunes which include this cadence, and where you can, with little excerpts which you can look at, with the measure numbers and all of that. And so then that will give you some further direction for study, because a lot of this has to do with just looking at these different cases, grasping them, assimilating them, and then, like I said before, when you see this particular cadence, you will recognize it for what it is, and you will know how you can compose or improvise a little melody over it. It will take time, but it will happen. The second case, as I should say, really, is the case where instead of coming down to resolving with a diminished chord, we're going up. So like we're going from the 1 to the sharp 1 diminished 7, to the 2 minor 7. Now in that particular cadence we have a number of examples. Okay, polka dots and moonbeams. Let's say this is the second 8. So we have key of A major, we modulate A major in the middle part there, so it's A major, A sharp diminished, B minor 7. So what's happened here? We're in the key of F major, but in the bridge it goes to A major. So it's like resolves what we call a temporary 1, but it stays there for a hot minute, right? So etc., etc. And then finally it comes back out. So there's a case of 1 sharp 1 diminished, 2 minor 7. Now this cadence could be said is a substitute, or it's like having a dominant chord to go to the 2. So what would be the dominant chord to go to the 2 minor 7 in the key of A major? So in the key of A major, B minor 7 is 2. What's the dominant? It's F sharp 7. So we could say and if we added the flat 9, there's your flat 9, and the flat 9 in an F sharp 7, the flat 9 is the G, which is the actually diminished 7. If you think of A sharp diminished 7, that G there, that note is what becomes the flat 9 if you play F sharp 7. So basically, how we improvise over a sharp 1 diminished, right, or a dominant chord to 2 minor with a flat 9. In other words, a sharp 1 diminished 7 or a 5/7 flat 9 to 2 minor 7 is the same. The only thing that's really changed is the bass note. And when you go up to when you play the diminished, it's a little bit more nuanced rather than going to the to the F sharp. Now this is a question of what which one to play in this case is a question of what you feel the dynamic should be at that particular moment. If you feel it should be a little bit stronger, you want to have a richer, more full, big fat kind of chord, then you play F sharp 7 flat 9. But if you want to have a little bit more subtle, you play A sharp diminished. So what happens there? What is the scale here? So we're not going to play going to do that. We're going to do this. So, okay. So what did I play? I think you must know this one from before. So what is that scale? Recognize that? That's the B, I should say the B harmonic minor. Of course, if we play F sharp 7, we're not going to start on B, right? We have to start on a note which within that chord somehow, or that moves to that. I mean, I could use a, lyrical. I could say, 3, 4. The scale is basically, when you're talking about a dominant chord with a flat 9, it's the harmonic minor scale to the place that it's going to resolve to. So in this case, it's B minor, B harmonic minor. But naturally, with a tonal focus on F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, the notes of the chord. However, I did this. Which should tell you one thing. There's no such thing as an avoid note. And there's no such thing as a forbidden note, right? There are chromatic tones, which because they are chromatic, in the sense that they're out of the scale, they're foreign to the scale, let's put it that way. They need to resolve someplace. That's what chromaticism is really about. So now, in our normal major scale, we do have chromatic movements, right? The A major scale. That's a half tone. That's you could say that's. But when you're talking about something like this, this F is not involved in A major 7, in the key of A major whatsoever. There's no F. So that is a pure, how do you say, foreign, extraneous tone which has to resolve somewhere. But it doesn't say I can't play it. Now see, some people look at these things too strictly and too theoretically. Music is about inspiration and aesthetic, feeling, beauty, those are the things. So if you do, why not? Some singer might do that, right? So we want to sing when we play. Go up the octave. I should say one other thing quickly about this particular case, 1 sharp 1. In the first case we saw, we went from E flat diminished to D minor. So the notes of A and C, they are common, or they're shared between E flat diminished 7 and D minor 7, because we're going down to them. Now in this case, A sharp. Now here, all the notes are moving. There are no shared notes. There are no shared notes here. We're going from A major 7 to A sharp diminished, and then to B minor 7. Every single voice of that chord moves, resolves the note of the following chord. And one last case, this particular cadence is also seen from the 2nd degree to the 3rd degree. 2 minor 7, sharp 2 diminished 7, 3 minor 7. It's the same idea, and there's one case which I can call up. It's the Jobim composition Once I Love, or known as original title Amour en Paz. I'm just going to read this like this. So he's moving. It starts on B minor 7, A major. Now here comes the sharp 1 diminished. Then comes the 2 minor, B minor. Then comes B sharp, or C diminished 7. And then lands on C minor 7. 3rd degree minor 7. So we have, in this case, we have 1 sharp 1 to 2, which we've already seen, and now we have 2, that same 2 continues on to 2 sharp 2 diminished 7 to 3 minor 7. And 3 minor 7 let us remember that 3 minor 7 is like 1 major 7. It's like another degree with the same feeling essentially. It's very often substituted for 1 major 7 in many, many cases, which I'm sure many of you know about already. I will just let you know some of the songs here that include this cadence. Case 1, Body and Soul. 3 minor, flat 3 diminished, 2 minor. Everything Happens to Me. Now he plays the key of B flat. He starts on C minor 7, 2, 5. Instead of going to 1, he goes to 3. And then he goes down to flat 3 diminished to 2. Etc., etc. So this is of course from Illinois Jacquet and Charles Thompson, Sir Charles Thompson, I should say. Key of D flat. That's an interesting movement too. It goes to the flatted 6th degree 7th chord. That's for another day maybe. And then to 3, E minor 7, E diminished 7, E flat, A flat 7, D. Huh? The cases are numerous. Again, Jobim, Triste, so the last part, D major 7, D minor 6, C sharp minor 7. This is the key of A major, by the way, so that's the 3rd degree. C diminished 7, flat 3rd degree, B minor 7. And he ends on A minor. Huh? That's a very nice kind of Jobim device there. The song is You. Remember that? Bridge. So E major, E major 7, E sharp diminished 7, or if you prefer F diminished, 2, F sharp. That's the case again. And then there's another one. The Way You Look Tonight. Etc., etc. Bridge. We're in the key of F, we go to A flat in the bridge. Two times, huh? Etc. And then this last example, Amour en Passe, or Once I Loved, Jobim. 1 sharp 1 diminished, 2 sharp 2 diminished, 3 minor 7. Right, okay, so I think we're good. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you like to see more. If you want to help me in any way, you will see some links to supporting my work. And I hope to meet you all again, or as many of you as possible, in my next video. Goodbye for now.